Hello, this is Excel, and welcome to my Talents Guide. Here I will explain what talents you will want to take for different types of situations, as well as why. For the first row, the only choice here is Twist of Fate. The other two currently have no practical applications in the game. For the second row, the default here is Body and Soul. Masochism has no use in PvE, and Mania is not reliable enough to be usable. For the third row, which is the CC row, default to Mind Bomb here, as it has the most uses in both rating and Mythic Plus scenarios. In the fourth row, Lingering Insanity should be your default. It allows you to get into your next Void form faster because of the extra haste, and more importantly, it also buffs the start of your next Void form. The exception to this would be if you are talented into Surrender to Madness, where you would take Reaper of Souls, as the additional insanity generation would be needed from Shadow Word Death. Void Ray is not a good option because there are very few circumstances where this would end up being better, and picking this talent comes at the cost of being a big damage loss in almost every other situation. On the fifth row, your choices are either San'laeon or Auspicious Spirits, as Shadowy Insight is worse than either. The choice between San'laeon and Auspicious Spirits will depend on the stat balance of your gear. As a simple rule, if you're below 20% crit, you go with San'laeon. If you are above 25% crit, you go with Auspicious Spirits, and if you're between 20 and 25% crit, you can play either, as there will be minimal impact on your DPS either way. Haste is the only insanity generator for San'laeon, whereas with Auspicious Spirits, you also have crit being a secondary insanity generator. At lower crit ratings, there is very little insanity generation from AS, so the extra damage on Vampiric Touch you get with San'laeon is better. At higher crit ratings, you generate enough insanity for better Void forms, which ends up being enough of a buff to both your dots and your shadowy apparitions to outweigh the 20% increased Vampiric Touch damage you would get from San'laeon. And an important note about Auspicious Spirits, although this favors more crit, you don't want to overdo it. Going too far past 25% crit will not yield enough insanity generation to further extend your Void forms, and at that point, assuming you have enough haste, you're better off stacking Mastery. For the sixth row, your two choices are Power Infusion and Misery. Mindbender is too weak to be considered right now. Power Infusion should be your default here. It's your best option in raids and in Mythic Plus 10 or higher. Proper usage of PI is important to making it powerful. You want PI to fall off at the same time as Void form, and ideally you PI at about 20 stacks and your Void form falls off at about 40. This will of course vary depending on gear and practice. This also serves to directly buff Lingering Insanity, so that not only do you get to your next Void form faster, but it's also a very significant buff to the start of your next Void form as well. Misery is useful in Mythic Plus dungeons, I would say 9 and below, where boss damage isn't that important and mobs don't live long enough for you to get good use out of Power Infusion. Being able to blanket everything with dots in half the globals will greatly improve your trash damage. In the final row, all the talents have some use, but your default in most cases should be Legacy of the Void. Surrender to Madness has a couple uses in rating, such as on Heroic Botanist and Mythic Star Augur, or fights that are under 3 to 4 minutes. Shadow Crash only really sees use in very low Mythic Plus dungeons, or if you're trying to pad on Scorpion. If you have any questions or thoughts on this video, please leave your feedback in the comments section below. That concludes this guide. Thanks for watching.